Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
There's ads. My
Were there ads
podcast
before?
is monetized. No, not when you did it before.
Great. Oh, wow. Now fancy.
know.
This is all newfangled.
I know. Welcome to the podcast, folks. See, I think people like that I don't even, I'm trying to get my promo in the beginning, but I kind of just start sometimes.
Okay.
And so Paranormal Karen, I think we're still in April. Nope, we're in May.
We're in May.
We might be in May.
March. No.
No, we're in March now.
May,
but when
April.
this plays, we're in the future.
Oh, my God.
Yay!
I'm a time traveler.
I know.
I love it.
So, and before I forget, folks, if you can give me 5 stars, that would be great.
She deserves them. She's earned every star.
Thank you. June, I'm at the Great American Comedy Festival in Nebraska, and then I go right to Zanies in St. Charles and Chicago. And yes, people, please, the Mothman is in Chicago.
Take pictures.
Get in touch with me. And I think that's, and you can book a tarot reading at karenrontowski.com or paranormalkaren.com. Follow the card of the day. I don't know. I think I've got everything. Tommy Durant
It's a lot.
is back.
You're busier than I am.
I know. It's crazy. And
it's good.
And Thomas Durant.
Thomas Durant. Thomas Henry Durant.
That I keep directing people to your protection episode that you did. You were my first guest.
Was it?
You were my first guest, and you taped 2 episodes, and one of them was all about protection, and the other one was, I think, us just talking.
That was fun. They're all fun. They're all fun.
Yes. So, folks, if you haven't listened, this is a demonologist, good guy.
She's lying about the second part.
TV editor, Thomas Durant.
TV producer now.
TV producer. And I'm just doing conversations with Tommy.
That's how long it's been since I've been on here. Now it's TV producer, and you have advertisements on your podcast.
And you have gotten 2 promotions. Is it 2 or 3?
I can't, I can't count. I do so many jobs.
I know.
It's so hard.
And you live in Washington with the Bigfoots?
With my big feet. I wanted to be with my tribe. Because I look like Sasquatch. So I'm trying to basically fit in with them so that eventually they'll accept me as one of their own.
Because you have the beard.
Yeah, well, the beard and the big feet, and as my wife points out, I'm hairy all over. So it's perfect.
But you don't have enough flannel.
That's true. Well, I'm working on that.
Okay, get some.
The grunge thing's got to happen.
Yeah, and an old hat. Some kind
Bigfoot
of
wear old hat?
Oh, Bigfoot. I thought you meant the guys looking for Bigfoot.
Oh, no. Well, okay. Well, then I'll get an old hat for sure.
Bigfoot might, I don't think Bigfoot wears a hat, although that would be the greatest photo ever.
With glasses, maybe a joint hanging out of his mouth. Can I say that? Am I allowed to say that?
You can say whatever you want.
Thug life Sasquatch. Right?
That's right. Most people don't swear on this podcast, but not from just because when you have a comedy. Yeah, I know when I did the Comedy Store Ghosts with a couple of comics and the F word was flying, but it's okay.
Well, I feel like it's because you're such a clean comic generally. So I feel like I have to be better. Because I swear, my dad's a truck driver, so I swear like a truck driver, which is not great in casual conversation, and especially not on a podcast. So I try to maintain composure.
Yes, you do. Well, you know what? Swearing is okay. So there you've been forewarned if anyone's watching. And so let me think, because we just taped something here in my apartment, and your battery went down to 0.
Yeah, had 2 full batteries and no longer 2 full batteries.
Okay.
So obviously we need to clean house.
We need to clean house. I have a lot of, but this is what happens. Boy, I just got Boston fast. I have a lot of, so I do my readings here, which means it needs a little extra cleaning, right?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, so I try to do it at least once a week. I try not to smoke out the dog because I've learned when you use that, I have the resin of the dragon's blood, and which you light that with a charcoal. For folks that don't know, you light the charcoal, then you put the little resin on the charcoal, and you have the steel. I have the thing,
whatever cauldron or holder, holster, whatever.
And it does not take much to smoke out the entire city of Van Nuys. And so I try not to make.
That's saying something.
Yes, and I try not to get the dog too he doesn't want to breathe too much of it. So I try to do it when I can open the windows. But here is what happens. I might have to do it every night because like this apartment complex is a little bit creepy, would you say?
I would say there's a fair amount of activity in the apartment complex.
Yeah. And especially at night, one time the power went out and I was downstairs and I felt like everything sort of focused on me all of a sudden. And someone said, well, yeah, if it's got a certain amount of power that the spirits are used to and it all goes down and then you're the only thing walking around, it can get very focused.
See, I have a different thought on that. My thought is because like our sensory, let me rephrase that. Our senses are overloaded all the time with lights, sounds, people doing things, televisions, everything going. So when all of that's taken away, I think it baselines us. So we're more attuned to smaller, more subtle things, or you notice things you wouldn't normally notice because you're not distracted.
That's actually a good point because that's why people think they see more ghosts at night than during the day, right?
Yeah, which it doesn't matter. I mean, we've got an activity any time of day, and sometimes with some of these haunts that are like clockwork, the residual haunts, the activity will be during the daytime. It doesn't matter. But at night, and a lot of investigators turn the lights out and all this, I think it's just because it really helps us to hone our senses because we're not distracted.
Right. Oh, excellent. So,
just my thought. It's an opinion.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm getting that look from Courage. That's a look.
Yeah, that's definitely like the, hey, we got business.
Yeah. Well, you already went poo.
He just did business.
Right. Sit down. In case people fear, he needs his nails clipped. If people
peppermint oil. Sorry.
Oh, I have that everywhere. So I do my readings here all day, and I kind of take care of myself. I do my salt bath, and at night when I go to bed, I think I do hear people walking through here, and every once in a while I will pop my head out and yell, "Go away," and that seems to help. But what is the theory? Is it just that because I'm connecting, I'm sort of opening up energies and a lot of things could come in?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're connecting to people, there's part of it that's mediumship. So you'll have other spirits trying to talk through the divination cards or whatever you're using. There's energies, guides, guardians, whatever they are. Again, wanting to connect, to help deliver the messages, not just the cards. So I think that there's going to be some traffic that comes with that. Anytime you're connecting with energies, I mean, it's nice every night to... I like to do a visualization every night of clearing myself of all energies, all people, disconnecting myself from everybody I've interacted with the exception of my wife and my parents, because
stay connected. Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah, they're all right.
They're kind of good people.
I said that like a judgment. They're all right.
Well, we're in LA. It's okay. You're allowed. Anyway, so to me, it's just about keeping your boundaries, keeping your space, and so you do like I from the first time I met you to now. You're very good about putting your boundaries up comparatively to what you were doing before and keeping your space sanctified. But yeah, sometimes you can't do dragon's blood every night. So then it's like, okay, well, substitute the dragon's blood for Palo Santo or substitute the dragon's blood for frankincense myrrh mix or copal or different things that'll do the same work but aren't as aggressive. Because the dragon's blood it's pretty potent, and if you burn it, especially resin, it really smokes up.
It really, this smell stays too.
Yeah, which I love, but it's not necessarily everybody's cup of tea.
It's not gentle.
Yeah, and every time I have to do a smoke out, Jen has to leave because I go crazy with it. I like a lot of smoke. It's just.
And I do have on Amazon. I got a nice dragon's blood incense, and that's good.
#Amazon.
#Amazon. And also, I sleep with a little diffuser that does lavender. And now I sleep with the salt lamp, at least halfway through the night. And that seems to keep that room clean.
Yeah, the salt lamp or UV lamps will disrupt the energies enough to keep them away. It's not going to lock anything in because I've heard some people say that salt lamps have an ability to lock things in. That's not true. No. If you put salt boundaries up, yes, then you can lock something in. But the salt lamps are generally very good at helping to change the ionization in the air so that it's less active. But I still always go to black light because it really just does the trick. But I mean, not everybody wants a black light. I mean, look, it's not the 90s anymore, and you don't have those iridescent posters of aliens hanging on your wall like some of us did as teenagers, myself. But it's something, if you know you have a lot of activity, it's good to have that on hand, because if you notice stuff going on, click it on, just let it sit for a bit. Chances are the energy is going to settle down. Wow, I can't speak tonight.
We've been talking a long time with what we were doing prior.
That's true. So it'll settle this stuff down and help give your space back at least a little bit.
Yeah, I know this is sort of a weird... here's another strange thing that happened. And I think we'll just cover a bunch of topics. It's just conversations with Tom. So I had your plants. When you guys moved to Washington, Jen gave me all your plants.
Oh, that's right. Money tree.
Money tree's still here.
Yeah.
Huge. She gave me 2 plants that got huge. And then someone sent me a plant. And when I went out on the road in February, I came home, everything was infested with aphids.
Oh.
Right. Because I think came from the plant that was sent to me. But I'm not sure that someone gave me, they brought it over.
Is that person going to know that they sent you that plant? Because you may not want to say that on the podcast.
I know. No, I don't think she listens to it. So
okay, good.
And so I had to throw out everything. And then I started throwing out more and more, and I couldn't stop. And as you can see, my apartment is half what?
I was amazed. There was so much space here. It's almost like a dance studio now.
Isn't it? And I love it like this.
Or yoga studio, sorry.
Something like that. And I love it like this. And basically if I had to move, there's only 2 things I couldn't carry myself, which obviously I'd ask someone to help, but that seems like a weird goal to have.
That's good. That's good, though. I mean, you're not attached to the material stuff, which is great.
Right. And also, I feel so much lighter and so much better. And I was talking to Jessa Reed, who everyone knows, a big fan on the show. Been on the show 3 times.
Wow.
She's right up with you. This is your 3rd. She's been 3.
This will be number 3. I got to catch up.
Yeah, really. And she said in one of our late night conversations, which I cannot tell you how much it joys me to get a text from Jessa, because it will say something like, hey, I didn't get back to her once, and I said, hey, you want to talk now? And she said, no, it's okay. I just had 2 planes of reality that were mixing at the wrong time, and I needed a reset, but it's okay now. And I'm always like, whatever that was, I have to find out more. But she said 2 things. The first, she said, when people lose their fears and inhibitions, they shed things and weight. I think that's another alien school. And she also said, because I forgot, her apartment is more barren than mine. And she said, I have this theory that we're always communicating with our stuff. And it was probably like, it's too noisy in here. Everything's got to go. And I think she was right. And it's that, that lady that does the show Tidying Up? I think it was kind of a theory like that. Like, I just think it's so much nicer in here now, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I wish we could do that. And I'm surprised I'm not 400 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, but I know this may not be a question I'm throwing you, but who do you think comes through here? Do you have any vibe on that? Because you stayed here while I was away.
Yeah, nobody came by when I was here. I mean, it was pretty quiet. I mean, there was energy peeking in, but it was all transient, so I wasn't really fixating on it. So it's hard to say. Like, could be people that were here. I mean, you've told me how many accidents have happened on that street. So, I mean, kind of a haunted 4 corners right there.
Yep.
So probably a lot of people that are just like, I'm going to go see what's going on here, where all the happening stuff is going on.
Yeah, and plus the tarot in here would draw them to that energy.
Sure.
Right? And I've had so many people send me questions. Plus, I didn't know the guy that lived downstairs. He was before me, but he got hit on that corner.
Oh, geez.
And I think Jennifer Phillips spotted him. Who's the guy with the hat? And it ended up being him. So, because I always wonder, and it's kind of like sometimes Dave will, our friend Dave, Big Brain Dave that I call him, he will be a little more cautious. Like I was doing my podcast on gin here, and he was like, be very careful what you say. Is it literally that? Well, because I do the tarot, for me, it might be a little more that fragile. No,
I think with anyone, I mean, there's a longstanding belief that if you use the name of the entity or you address these entities, that it does attract them. Because if you believe in the power of attraction at all, there is definitely an energy that goes out when you're referencing something. The same way that, like, if you're thinking of a friend and they all of a sudden text you because they thought of you at the same time, it does happen with these energies. So I would say, yes, the caution is always good. The idea is to not be fearful.
Right.
So it's finding the balance of like, because I mean, not that I meant to do this, but when I first started in the field, there is an initial reaction where you kind of go over the top because you want people to be safe, but it sounds like you're fear mongering. And so my goal has been tempering that back over the years because that was never my intention.
Right.
But I see it all the time where people will go in and just fear monger like crazy. And it's like, listen, just because it can happen doesn't mean it will happen. But I think people should be prepared. They should have knowledge. And it doesn't mean that they have to be afraid of it. Because again, these things are here to teach us lessons, right? No matter what happens, as long as you get through it, you'll learn every time. Like there are worst case scenarios like the Constantinos or Father Calder, who I really think are examples of what happens if the activity can get to a point where it's so bad that it causes physical harm.
And just so everybody knows, I'm gonna ask you those two stories when you're done, but continue.
Okay. So anyway, for me, it's like, okay, yes, it can get really bad, but it doesn't have to. And you know, Andy's situation was very different because he had other stuff going on. So I shouldn't have actually used him as an example. But with Mark and Debbie, they were continuing to make the same decisions over and over again.
And for people that don't know, in the paranormal field, there were two investigators that were very, I don't know if I want to say popular or everybody knew them.
Yeah, they were like B-list celebrities in the
They were on Ghost Adventures and they were named the Constantinas. And I know you had talked to them at one point.
Oh, I went to the house. I mean, I spent time with them. They were friends for a time, and they were good people. And not to say that they're not good people, but they're deceased now. So, but they had something that they were interacting with on a regular basis that definitely was not of positive vibes. And they continued the interactions over a long period of time, and it to where like I got called to go out to their house to try to help them clear it out of their home and get their control back. And immediately after, they continued the behavior that brought it in the first place.
And that is a perfect place for an ad.
Oh, we're gonna wait for an ad.
Because you got to hear how this story turned out, folks.
Ooh.
Fierce, Funny, and Female has won over 10 book awards. And probably while I'm telling you this, it's winning 10 more. As one of the first women to work as a laborer in the Texas oil field, Marty McGibbon set off explosives and staked oil wells before realizing her childhood dream of becoming a successful stand-up comic. Marty introduces readers to a wide range of characters in her life, from sleazy authority figures and crazy Corn Belt cult leaders to Texas oil billionaires to wild-eyed redneck co-workers who robbed banks on their lunch hour. This is the second in Marty's series, and it is one of the most exciting stories. It's the story of a young woman's triumph over adversity and trauma, told with grace, wit, and laugh-out-loud humor. Look for Fierce, Funny, and Female on Amazon.com, author Marty McGibbon. Okay, so we're talking about the Constantinas, and they lived in Reno, right?
Yeah, Mark and Debbie lived in Reno with their family.
And when we talk about the behavior that they were doing so that nobody at home is going, what do I do? They were paranormal investigators that were investigating in their home.
Well, they were also investigating some very heavy places, as part of TV show deals or as part of investigations with major events, paranormal events. So, they were actively seeking some pretty gnarly stuff to try to get evidence in order to, I don't know. I don't want to say promote themselves or
no, but when you're doing a TV show, they want you to produce evidence, and sometimes they push harder than you or I would.
Sure, let's go with that.
Yeah,
that's a nice way of saying it. So
you and I are not interested in finding a demon.
Well, I've seen enough of them. I don't have any, and again, there's a reason why my evidence never sees the light of day. I have a lot of recordings. I have a lot of video and audio. None of it is ever put out there.
Is it because it opens others to that entity?
I believe it gives it a conduit to other people. I believe also that it doesn't serve anyone for that to be out there.
Right.
What positive thing could come from that? It's purely in the moment to help us assess what's happening and help the family or the homeowner or the property owner to get through it.
And also us listening to it, because even I lean in like, well, what was it? What does it say? That's a morbid curiosity.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, it gives it more.
gives it energy. I mean, we're feeding it. You're feeding the beast at that point.
And you don't want to be connected to it, correct?
No, hell. Oh, well, hell no is probably the right answer, but it's also, I wasn't trying to go that far with it. But the truth is, no, I have no need to be connected to these energies because they don't serve me. I come in there to help other people, and that means I have to be 100% on game and safe and protected as much as I can be. If I'm compromised, I can't help anybody.
Right.
You can't be a conduit for positive light and vibes and love and joy if you're in a shitty place.
And I feel like, but I'm not, actually, this is the first time, I'm probably going to say this now, that I haven't felt, you removed the fairy attachment that I talk about. You remember that?
Is that the one my cat removed?
Your cat removed it.
Yeah, I like to give him credit because I don't think I do anything.
I haven't thought about it in a year, but there were times when I was always like, it's around, and if I think too much or I connect too much to it, it could, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like you're still connecting through thought.
Absolutely.
And not that I don't feel afraid of it or like it needs to go away or but I was just always like, yeah, I know you're there. And it was always like, and I know you're there.
It's a healthy respect.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
was the lesson learned and a healthy respect.
Exactly.
So you don't need to be connected to these things.
No.
So they asked you to cleanse their house.
Right. So a colleague of mine and I went out there. We performed several cleansing rituals, banishments in the home. We felt very secure about what we had done. And we went to bed that night, woke up the next morning and left. And after we left, found out through Mark that they had decided to start recording in the house again because at that time, one of them thought it was a good idea to get more evidence in their own home, which in terms of what I do, like part of what we do is we try to remove it from the house or from the location so that people can regain their personal strength and reset their boundaries and try to build the better foundation. But if they don't build that better foundation and they just invite stuff back in, they go right back to square one.
Right. And I said right, like I've taught you well, Tommy.
Oh, sure. You can take credit. It's fine.
And also that, which, and we'll finish the Constantina and then we'll talk about what I called you about a little while ago. Mm-hmm. So they, and I didn't, she first started doing EVPs because she thought she had an EVP of her dad. Is that correct? She started
I believe that was the initial story.
Okay. And then they just, which I don't know why you need evidence in your house like that. Like, honestly, sometimes I hear this room creak, and I've learned the difference between when the people downstairs get up, it's a different creak or this and that. But sometimes I will just look out and yell, "Go away!" in this home because I don't really want to see it. It's not. It happens a lot when you're asleep. So I don't want to wake up and see anything because I can't imagine trying to sleep after that ever again. So I don't know why they wanted to know what was in their house that they couldn't see.
I think they knew what was in the house. I think after that, whatever the situation was that got them into it, they were going to these locations and getting voices. And at a certain point,
they knew a demon was in their house.
Well, at a certain point, all the voices were the same that they were getting on the recorders no matter where they went.
Oh, okay.
It was the same voice. And I mean, not to say there weren't different ones here and there, but a majority of it was the same tone, timbre, delivery every time.
So they were haunted.
Which a lot of people thought meant they were faking the evidence, but the truth is it was, my belief, it was the entity that was with them. And so that energy obviously went to their home and they were having a lot of things happening. I don't want to go into too much detail because it's not really my story to tell.
And we're giving it energy, yeah.
So basically just the fact that they brought it back in, things progressed down a bad way. Mark called me at one point, it was like 3 years after I had gone there, 2 years after I had gone there, and he said, "Look, this is getting really bad now. I need to either leave the house or, I don't know what's going to happen." And I said, "Get out. You need to do what's best. And if you're getting dragged down, you need to leave the situation, get yourself to a better place, and then you can go in and finish helping the other people there, in that case, Debbie and some of the children.
And I remember hearing them on a podcast talk about how at one point they had Native Americans come in for a week and flush the place. So
they had everybody there. I mean, they had several priests and clergymen over, several spiritualists, and it was all trying to just get to. It was always at a point where things were really bad, and they were always trying to get back to a baseline. But instead of keeping it out, they would just begin their same behavior over and over again.
Now, their same behavior, do you think that was antagonized because they were compromised? Or was it really clean and they were just like, well, let's just do it again?
I think the latter. I think the house is, again, you can't say 100% whether the house is clean, but if there's enough space for a breath, there's enough time for them to understand what they need to do in order to keep it out. And I just don't feel like they wanted to follow that advice.
And there is an adrenaline rush with all this.
Well, and there's also an ego connection too, because when your identity, and even like for me, it was like my identity became what I was doing in the paranormal. And again, I had to check myself and pull away and sort of redefine who I was. Not by what I did, but by the person I am. And I don't think they ever did that. I think they were known for that. They got a lot of attention from that. And so it made sense for them to continue that.
Ah, okay.
And so that draw to be who they thought they were was stronger than their, I don't want to say fear, but their understanding of how bad things could get.
And there is a weird fascination when you know, we were talking about this earlier. If I, you know, the guys that saw, I know a comic that was continually looking for Bigfoot and found him. And that face to face was like, I got to back out of this. It's such a change of consciousness. You know, we talk about this all the time on the podcast, whether it's about the aliens or whatever. But when you really have it there, it changes everything for you.
Yeah. I mean,
even I still tiptoe in. Did I just say that? Did that just happen? Or even with my reading, sometimes people call me and go, this was on, this was on, this was on. And I sort of disassociate because I'm like, I want to just have that when I read, just have the connection of go with what's coming. Don't think you're doing right. Don't think you're great.
Yeah, don't put judgment on it.
Don't put judgment on it. So they, so that last time you told him to get out of the house.
Yeah, I said it's probably in your best interest to leave and again get your own energy back and reclaim yourself and put up your boundaries, and then there will be a time to go back in and try to help, you know, your wife and
daughter, I think,
and daughters. So then, yeah, I mean, just to quickly get to the end of the story, because again, I don't really feel comfortable talking about their story.
Sorry.
It's just eventually there was an altercation where Debbie had left and Mark had gotten incredibly jealous and he took a gun and
it was a murder-suicide.
Yeah, murder-suicide, double murder-suicide.
And also, I don't think anything you said I haven't heard on podcasts or.
I know. I don't like being in other people's business. Like I like to. I hope that somebody will learn from their mistakes, but I know there's a lot of people that will criticize, saying that no, it wasn't paranormal, it was psychological. But I mean, again, the amount of time I spent with Mark, even though yes, he was jealous, I don't think it ever would have gotten to that point had there not been another influence there.
No, anybody that met them knew they were very nice.
Yep, always very sweet.
Yep, and that whole thing came out of nowhere, I thought.
Yeah, it felt very abrupt.
Yeah, and that obviously worst case scenario. People don't worry.
Yeah, yeah. It's not like that's super common, but it just like possession. People are like, "Oh, I don't want to get possessed," but you know, possession is not very common. It just could be what happens if things go unchecked for a certain period of time, and if you're not, I don't want to say cautious, but I mean, that is the best word for it. Oh, we're aware of what's happening and how you can keep your space, keep your power.
And also, you know, it's very interesting that you're here. I had the strangest experience.
You invited me here. It's not strange. How was that?
I mean, it's strange that you were here after this
I can't come in unless you invite me.
Why, are you a demon? Is
Sure,
that right?
why
You
not?
have to invite them
Yeah, invitation.
I have had a couple of things, and I really feel like when we talk about the veil getting thinner, I think these 3 years, it really, not only that, what you say goes out into that universe fast and comes back. And I'm not looking for any trouble, but obviously I'm in the paranormal, I'm walking. I had to call you because, or I didn't have to, but I called you because of that Paranormal Karen episode where, and I played it for you guys, I think it's back on the catch up episode, where
with the EVP?
the EVP was on, I taped it in Virginia City. I came home, detached the audio, did the voiceover, put it on YouTube. I never heard it. And we know EVPs can pop up and then disappear.
Yeah, then disappear.
And a fan put on the comment, did somebody just hear this thing say, kill her? And it was very, very clear.
Yep.
And
That's true.
Yeah, and I thought two things. I know that sometimes, I think you taught me this, the audio lays, that's why sometimes you can play them forwards and backwards and they sound the same, because their audio lays differently on digital than ours. So I was thinking, I could have taken off that sound, but it could have still been somehow on there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
But I was like, what's that, Tommy? It's in my apartment, says the voiceover. What's that?
It's like, no, it probably was at the location and just you didn't get it until now because, again, things work so differently over there too. It could just be that you weren't meant to hear it until later. But maybe it was, again, meant to remind you because maybe you were lax on your boundaries and your protection at that point to re-up.
And yes, and because it was not in the Washoe Club, it was in the bottom of the Washoe Club in the museum, which is very, I was in the morgue, I was there alone, blah, blah, blah. During the day, it wasn't nighttime.
Again, day or night though, doesn't matter.
Yeah, but or you thought it might have been a stowaway, but you had the same feeling, I forget who else did, that the thing was not necessarily talking to me.
Yeah, it sounds more like you picked up something that was happening at the time in that location.
Okay, which the Wash Up Club, didn't they?
Oh yeah, so much stuff happened there.
So that was one thing. The other thing, this is very odd, and I don't know why, but when the day that this happened, I remember thinking, and that happened today. And I can't remember because I haven't done any podcasts on possession or anything. But so I take Courage out for a walk, and I can honestly tell you, I don't think I've never seen the dark stuff you have seen, and I don't care. It's fine. So we're walking.
Probably for the better.
Yes. So I'm walking Courage, and everybody's pretty friendly in my neighborhood. I always say hello. And I see a guy.
Even for Van Nuys.
Yes, for Van Nuys. Well, I think we're all afraid, so we're overly friendly. Good. He's coming around this corner that the street you and I just walked Courage on. And I'm coming down this way, and I see him, and I'm immediately nervous. And I pick up Courage. I pick up Courage if I see other dogs. Pick him up, put him under my arm, and out of a nervousness, I look up and say to this guy, he's so slow, or something like that. And the guy stops and stands dead still. And he looks me in the eye without saying a word. So it was the creepiest thing, and he says nothing. And I make the choice, don't make eye contact with him. And I walked around him. And he stood there for a while, and I came up here, and I ran out and looked the window, and he wasn't anywhere. And I called Sonia immediately, and I said, ask Courage, what was that? And he didn't say possession. He said that wasn't the person that was supposed to be in the body. That weird
like
noise is the dog next door. Yeah.
Oh.
So the dog, yeah. So, but it
I feel like we're doing an EVP session with the dog.
I know, EVP session, but did I say that? But this guy looked horrible. Like just the look on his face. He didn't say anything.
Maybe he thought you meant he was slow.
I know.
So slow.
I go, these dogs, they smell everything. And he just dead stopped.
Yeah.
So and his eyes were very bloodshot. So
or he could have been on drugs.
He could have been on drugs. She just said the right person wasn't in that body, which could also be somebody on drugs.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, because again, people can get hijacked when they're high enough too. Seen that happen.
Right. And sometimes when they get hijacked, let's see where we are in time because this is a perfect, nope, not yet. So when someone has a walk, you call it a walk-in.
Yeah.
Right.
I call it walk-in. There's different,
say walk-on.
Well, different people have like different ideas on what that is too. So in my mind, a walk-in is a transient spirit that comes in, or a soul that comes into a body when the other spirit who's normally there is not. So, you know, I don't know, the best way to describe it is if you're on like a really big trip, I mean, acid trip or drug trip, and your soul maybe leaves the body and something else comes in and takes over. Or you have a near-death experience where the person dies and the soul leaves and then something else comes in.
And that's usually a switch, though, right?
Yeah,
the other one doesn't come back.
And sometimes that's a switch. Not always, but sometimes. So it's just, again, like that's just my terminology for it. It may not be the common terminology. That's just how I think of it.
I always said walk on, but I think I made that mistake a while ago.
Isn't that the Joaquin Phoenix movie?
That is.
Oh, wait. Is that Walk Hard? No, Walk the Line.
Walk the line.
Way off.
Yeah. So, or this guy could have been high and somebody just for a couple of minutes was trying to.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially with all the dead people in that corner. Very possible that high guy all of a sudden just hit possession and was like, whoop, and then out, you know?
You know, that is interesting. And I couldn't see him again. I wonder, I always forget that really there probably are a lot of souls around that corner.
Yeah, from the amount of accidents you've said have been there.
Right. Yeah. Still.
Not an EVP, that was me moaning.
Yeah. And hang on, folks. I always have my new catchphrase is "There's your nightmare."
What, the advertisements?
No.
You shouldn't say that about your advertisers.
When something creepy comes out, I go, "There's your nightmare, ladies and gentlemen." I don't know if we've hit it yet, or have we hit a couple?
I don't know. The Mark and Debbie story is pretty nightmarish.
Yeah.
That's like worst case scenario.
Yeah, I think that's yeah. There you go. Okay. Well, we might have another nightmare for you, though. No, you know what? We're going to turn it around. I got a couple of people that send me questions and things that you might be able to. I know you don't know the whole case, but we'll see if you give them some tips.
Okay, great.
Here we go. Who do tarot readers go for tarot readings? They go to Melissa Sonova at melissasonova.com. She gave me the best reading a couple of months ago that is still resonating and helping me out now. She is authentic and to the point. You loved her on the podcast. She is the No BS tarot reader. She also has a tarot class online right now. Check it out. Just watching the promo, you will see how much fun you are going to have while you learn. Also, check out her book, which is always right beside me when I'm doing my readings or my tarot card for me in the morning. It is called Kitchen Table Tarot, and you will love it. Melissa Sonova, that's MELISSACYNOVA. Check her out. Okay, so we're back with some basics.
Sure.
And there's a lovely lady I'm communicating with, and this is not a terrifying situation, but this is a lot of kind of the questions that I get.
Okay.
So her dog watches in the closet. Dog showed Sonia 2 spirits in there.
Okay.
And Sonia described and talked to me, and it doesn't seem like a big deal. I felt like one of them was residual, and the other one seemed to look up and kind of,
acknowledge something. Okay.
And at least acknowledge the dog. And the dog's not going crazy, barking, blah, blah, blah. The dog kind of watching them. I don't even know if the dog was keeping them in place. It just seemed like they were 2 spirits in the closet. And I know. And why are they always in the closet? Why are there so many spirits in the closet? I don't want everyone. No one will have a closet.
I can't touch this. I can't touch this.
We have to tell them it's legal now.
I know. Well, some states.
Yes. Is it because there's clutter in the closet?
Honestly, this is something. Closets and bathrooms. Always closets and bathrooms. And I still, to this day, don't have a real answer for that, except for the fact that there's less people around. It's, it's out of the way. You're not going to have a lot of activity there from the living. So maybe it's kind of like a nice hiding place for the deceased.
Well, you don't know menopausal women and how often they're in the bathroom.
Well, never mind. Yes, true. That's true.
Would the bathroom have a water element to it, maybe?
Well, the bathroom with all the metal in the water absolutely could have, and the electrical currents. It's kind of like a perfect storm of feeding ground. So that's very possible. The other theory for me is we're very vulnerable in the bathroom. I mean, I don't like going to the bathroom when somebody's staring at me. So I feel very vulnerable. And
were we going to make this a more positive episode? Now everyone's going to be afraid to go to the bathroom?
No, don't be afraid to go to the bathroom. I mean, unless something pops in. But no. That's just maybe keep some dragon's blood in the bathroom.
Okay.
You could call it a center to help
I
get rid of
actually
other
had
foul
a
odors.
different episode where someone told me Kool-Aid cleans the toilet. And so I put a whole bunch of Kool-Aid in the toilet. The only way it cleans the toilet is because then you have to scrub it so hard to get the Kool-Aid off. But it still looks like you murdered someone and tried to flush the body down the toilet. That's all I'm saying.
Terrible.
That was my it's a weird segue, but it happens.
That would be a terrible practical joke to play on somebody. It's like, hey, come on back to my apartment, and you have to use the restroom. That's fine. It's all Kool-Aid. It's like, oh.
Or maybe they don't look first, and then they're like, I'm bleeding profusely.
Well, that's how you know a man is a keeper, right? If he goes in there and sees that, and is like, I'll stick around.
Yes, there's always something in my apartment odd like that. So ghosts, bathrooms, and closets. Okay.
Right. So the closet lady, that's a terrible way to name her, but your client who has the ghost problem in the closet.
Yeah.
So has the activity manifested outside of the closet?
No, it doesn't seem to be, and it doesn't really. It seems. I think now that it's sort of been acknowledged, she's just a little nervous about it. But she hasn't really had anything bad. But she does notice it. Not that it upsets the dog, but the dog is definitely aware.
Well, is it possible that there's an object in the closet that she owns or that's in the walls of the house there that may have an attachment, may have a spirit attachment?
I think I asked her about an object. And I don't know why. Oh, and I think Sonia asked the dog.
My thought is the dog wouldn't necessarily know if there's something in the walls, though, because we've had a lot of cases where people have had activity and things have been buried inside the walls.
Oh, okay.
Well, like in one case that Dave brought to my attention, Big Brain Dave, as you call him, there was actually a place where they broke through the wall and there were a bunch of photographs and a baby bonnet and some other strange things that seemed to have activity tied to them. So I would just suggest that if
she knocked down the wall?
Well, if she's renting in Hollywood, I would say don't do it because it'll cost you an arm and a leg. But if she owns the house, it might be worth seeing what's back there, getting a snake camera cheap online and drilling like a little hole and seeing if there's something back there, or looking through her stuff to make sure there's not something that she owns or that bought it at an antique shop or got from a relative that passed away. I would check all those things first.
Okay.
And then if she's not sure, she can't break the wall, then she can always put a little bit of salt or chalk around the doorway of the closet to try to keep it back in there and just make sure it's not going to come out and cause any problems.
Okay. And that, I think I told her the salt, and salt should never aggravate, correct?
No, it can.
Oh, can?
It can. I mean, not salt lamps, but if you're putting up salt boundaries and something feels trapped, it can sometimes aggravate the activity. But if it's not leaving that area and it's, again, if the activity's not, I always say if the activity's not harming anyone or causing a ruckus,
leave it be.
Yeah, because they have a right to exist. They're here for whatever reason. And as long as they're not bothering anyone, if it's just the dog staring at it, then the dog staring at it, you acknowledge what it is. Sometimes the spirits just want to be acknowledged anyway. So just say hi, introduce yourself, say, hey, I'm sorry if you're in there. I am just living here. This is 2019. And just have a conversation, because a lot of times you have to remember, if they're deceased and they number one may not know they're deceased. So they may be like, what the hell's going on here? And just talking to them might calm things. Otherwise, if they've been dead for 50, 60, 100 years and no one's talked to them and finally something or someone is noticing them, they're going to want to get that attention, because how would you feel if nobody talked to you? Well, I guess I'm a hermit, so I wouldn't mind. But some people would want.
But best case scenario, ignore, correct?
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad way to go.
Yeah, ignore if you have to. Because I always think if you acknowledge, wouldn't you be like saying, hey, let's all have a lot of conversation?
Yeah, but if it's just human spirit, it's not, it's not a bad thing. I mean, again, like, it's not like it's homeless people on Hollywood Boulevard. You're talking about a spirit. Maybe you don't know who they are, but then if the activity progresses at that point, there's other things you can do that are easy and simple. But I think sometimes the most simple thing is to just acknowledge. I mean, that's some of our best human connections come from just saying hi to a random stranger or doing something nice for somebody without them knowing. So even just being that nice person and putting that energy out there as a positive thing, as opposed to a fear thing, could go a long way to helping them out too.
So saying, hello, it's 2019. Nice to see you. Please don't scare me at night.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I respect that you're here. I'm okay. You haven't done anything. Thank you for not scaring me. Thank you for not scaring the kids. I'm just going to be sleeping here, so just ignore me.
Right. Okay.
Good.
Now you have, and I'm going to be very vague here. This person doesn't listen to this podcast, but I know it's a story about someone that that was on an investigation with you. These people
now I'm confused.
Oh, okay. These people were very, very comfortable with something dark that was in their home, and they would say, oh yeah, we see it, blah, blah, blah. It was a dark mass, kind of. And she, I think, was your girlfriend at the time, and she became very, very Christian after, because it freaked her out so much.
Well, that was another. So, all right. That case was brought to me by another team in the Central California region. They contacted me because they knew something was happening there, and they, wanted to see what it was. My girlfriend at the time accompanied me on that case, as well as one of the investigators. And in the homes, there were 2 homes being affected on this property in particular. One home, the people were so high, they barely even knew we were there, so we didn't really deal with them. The other home, they knew they didn't like necessarily all of the activity, but they didn't mind the attention they were getting.
So they were on that kind of line we were talking about with the Constantinas.
I would say Constantino adjacent, yeah. Mm-hmm. They thought they wanted it gone. And this thing was very tricky, too, because other teams had gone in since then and before then and hadn't gotten the activity that we witnessed when we were there. But, yeah, there was a physical manifestation, which was only the second in my... it was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that in my time doing this. But second time where something so physically manifested that it was really happening. It was not, there's no possible way that it was just in my mind or just my mind's eye. It was very, very real. It was blocking out light, and the glowing of the eyes was so bright that it was illuminating parts of the face. So it's not like it was just... it wasn't a dream.
Yeah, it wasn't like, did you see that pass by? It was right there.
Right, and to the point where the person I was with definitely was frightened and told my current wife, because they were friends back then, that she had to sleep with the light on for several months because she was so terrified. The other gentleman ended up in a psychiatric institution for short-term. And I don't know if he quit the field, but he definitely pulled back from the paranormal field after that for a while.
Is that so? He ended up because of the shock of seeing it, or did he have, maybe there was more of a connection than thought?
All I can tell you is he was a stable individual before. We had a lot of mutual friends, very good track record, and things quickly degraded after the case. And that's where he ended up, and that's where things went. So,
and that sort of, which there you go, people. Be sure you're ready to go look for what you're looking for.
Welcome to a nightmare.
Yeah, welcome to your nightmare. And that also, because you said it was sort of it sounds like it happened slowly. So that thing could have connected to him, or he could have just been so... Again,
it could either be the shock of the situation, or it could be that the entity was connected with him. There was very little we could do that night, and in fact, it was at that point I had deemed it safer to do some quick triage in the houses and then get out of the situation based on the fact that the two people I was there with were having a difficult time handling what had happened. And so we left, and, I did very thorough rituals after getting home that night to try and make sure there was no connections and that things were safe for us, but the other gentleman was not with us. So
so he may not have,
I gave him suggestions. It doesn't mean that the gentleman followed the suggestions. And again, not that everything I do is 100%. Like, I try to listen to historical accounts and accurately use that when necessary. I try to listen to different ritualistic magic approaches and different religious approaches based on what I think is happening. But I also rely heavily on divine intervention because I think we're just DFH, dumb effing humans. Mm-hmm. So there's only so much me as a human can do. So I really do rely on these other entities of the positive light, the loving light, to be there for us, to help us out. And, I feel very strongly that we were protected pretty heavily in that situation based on what I knew was going on there.
Right. And, it's very funny because I just interviewed my friend who had a very bad situation, and he worked in a hospital, and he...
They love hospitals.
Yeah. Well, he picked it up at a location, and I think he knew it and went home that night, and then he was at work at the hospital, and I actually originally was talking to him about doppelgangers. And he thought,
These are the conversations we have.
Yeah. And he thought, you know what? I'm going to my break. I know people, I think he said in the psych ward, and he went down and he was like, what he actually deducted was that he wasn't only hearing it. He wasn't the only one hearing it. And he was like, I know what this is now. And his instructions were to put salt in a face cloth, put it over the shower, and let the salt water drain him. And that really did it. And I thought two things, which was, when in doubt, salt, which I do all the time.
Salt baths are great.
And also that somebody giving you the answer like that sometimes, and having faith in that, can really do it.
Absolutely.
Right?
I think, again, the connection we have with the divine is always there if we choose to listen. And sussing out what's divine versus what's not, it takes a little practice. But once you do that, that's always going to be the best source of keeping yourself guarded, because, people, there's all these stories of people being in situations, and it's like, put on your seatbelt, or don't go this way, or don't do that.
Or don't drink while you're ghost hunting.
Or don't drink while you're ghost hunting. Well, that's me saying that. I don't know if that's a spirit guide, but maybe it is. I mean, there's things that we get intuitively a lot that keep us safe, and we listen to them. And sometimes you think it's the voice in the back of your head, but I really believe it's intercession from something else that's making sure we're not going when we're not supposed to go.
And actually this is a weird, because I do want to bring this around so we're not terrifying people. Do
I sound terrified?
No, you do. Well, you're not terrified, but
they shouldn't be either.
The other thing that's interesting, and I don't know the guy that you were talking about, but I am continually amazed when I go, I'm always I'm open to it, protection. I'm always protection first. Maybe we'll get an EVP, blah, 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 blah. But you're constantly on ghost hunts with almost always guys that are like, I want to see something. I'm going to go off by myself and aggressively, you know what I mean?
Go ahead.
I ain't never heard nothing, or that, that's that. I don't know that guy, but I could always see, you know what I mean? Oh,
we all know that guy. We've all been to those events.
Right. And that's the guy that all of a sudden you don't see him back.
Yeah, something will happen, and then that's the end of it. Yeah. I've seen guys that are Marines, seasoned Marines, that get real nervous when something happens because it's not what they're used to fighting. Again, I think a lot of it comes down to, until you have a fairly sizable experience, there's still a part of our brain that says, oh, this isn't really real.
Right.
And then you have that one or two moments of oh shit, no, this is real, and this thing can hurt me, or can affect me. Let's not even say hurt. Can affect me. I am in way over my head. We've all been there. I've been there. I'm sure you've been there. Jen's been there. My wife. We've all been there. It's just how you deal with that. It's how you take that lesson, learn from it, and adjust your path and adjust what you're doing Maybe that's sometimes removing yourself from it completely. Maybe that's sometimes doing things in a different way. Maybe it's just how you look at things. Because a lot of people will come to me and say, "Oh, I want you to teach me what you know." And it's like, well, that's going to take a while, number one.
I've said that to you.
And number two, it's like a lot of these people do it thinking, and this is the term I've loved to use. A friend of mine used this, God's gunslinger. They all think they're God's gunslinger.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I'm doing this for Christ. And it's like, listen, there's not one part of the Bible where Christ came out with a sword and shield and started swatting these things in the face. There's no part in the Bible where he comes out and he's swearing and yelling and cursing at them.
And building an army.
Yeah, he didn't need to. I mean, yes, there is Revelation. If you count Revelations, like that's a battle between good and evil. But I mean, in terms of like how the New Testament dealt with Jesus and the demons, he just showed up. He was like, I'm the Son of God, so what are you going to do? And they're like, I'm out of here. See you later.
Right. It wasn't. Yeah. And for people's egos to take that on, that's their...
You're trying to fight fire with more fire. It doesn't work.
And I remember hearing a guy on Coast to Coast AM talking about exercise. That's the other thing, too. I get very suspicious of anyone that's doing a whole bunch of exorcisms. And
must be a lot of demons there. I don't know.
And maybe you're the problem then, because I haven't run into that many.
I haven't either.
And I have a really nice way to wrap this up.
Because it's still going down that dark path. I know. We need to get off the dark path.
Yes. And I was just going to ask you about too many crystals in a weird way, but then I thought, well, that'll make people nervous too. Like you can have too many crystals that kind of creates it's like me doing tarot. It creates a bigger energy sort of thing, right? Or no?
It can. I mean, I'm less inclined. It's more, you'll get more problematic stuff if you're mixing spiritual beliefs or religious beliefs, like actual objects from various parts of the world that have had, just that certain spirituality that's been imbued into it. Like you can sometimes get conflicts between the beliefs I've witnessed personally. I'm not saying it happens all the time, but it's possible. Or sometimes like you get a mask from Haiti or some other place outside of the U.S. that was actually used in a ritual. And then, there's going to be activity because it's a ritual object, you know, and it's not being used anymore in the way it was intended or not being dealt with in the way it was intended. So those are things I would just be careful of. But the crystals, it's like, you can get some dissonance with the crystals. I'm putting two fists together in case you can't see me. You can get some dissonance with the crystals, but it doesn't generally lead to harmful things. It can open you up maybe a little too much to energies, but then use grounding crystals like hematite or tiger's eye. Okay. Something that's more balanced to try to bring you back down. Like you don't want to go all either way
airy
either.
Fairy.
Yeah. I mean, open yourself up, but you don't need to be super open to get all the information.
Right. I think some people
believe that.
I can't remember what that applied to, but I remember it was like it was just so many crystals that it seemed like it was now you're kind of, I don't know how to put it.
Like creating a vortex almost?
Yeah. That you could have so many that you're opening something up. Maybe not?
I mean, you could if it's done...
Too much? Really too much?
A certain way, but it's like, I'm not here to scare anyone, so I'm like, my wife works in a crystal shop. There's a ton of crystals there. There ain't stuff flying around that all the time.
Right.
The worst thing you got to deal with there is the homeless people coming in and causing trouble.
Yeah, somebody was trying to lock her out.
Oh, yeah.
And I also feel like I have a big Om sticker on and I just feel like that's a nice vibration through.
Absolutely.
That symbol is, and I have all kinds of, I don't even know what these curtains are. Are they Mandelas? Are they? They're from Amazon. So here now, I'm going to give everybody, we're going to teach everybody two things, and then I'm going to end. You know how I told you about the guy I thought was possessed? I remember why I said, interesting that happened today. And that's how we're going to end it. It's a great callback. So if people are to, first of all, you probably don't, all of the things we scared you with, demons or whatever, they're probably not in your place, or they would have been before. Not after this podcast. There's no reason to get scared of them after listening to this podcast, because you would have known before if they were there, correct? Sure. Okay. So don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Hold your ground.
Yes.
Have your faith.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what your faith is, even if it's just faith in yourself.
Right. So here's another weird. So I told you about the guy that was on the street that was possessed.
Right.
So when I sit in the morning, do my meditation, I have, and folks, I'm getting ready to do this podcast, a bottle of Orasoma. And I put it on.
Which, thank you for the bottle, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome. And so I just use mine in the morning, this is all I'm going to say about it. I use mine in the morning, and I am doing my readings, and through the second reading, and I'm not always aware, I'm not very mediumship, I don't always know, but I have an image in my head of what Archangel Michael looks like. And I'm telling you, he was right here. And I was like, what's that about? And I was like, I was almost like, ooh, you are going to be my boyfriend, aren't you? Because he's very handsome.
Was he wearing a bathrobe?
No, but he had on.
Well, at least he wasn't Weinsteining you.
No.
Sorry.
But I was also like, because that's that's even my tattoo. That's my go-to. That's my guy. And
that's a pretty solid choice.
Good. Yeah, you can't miss with that. But I was so aware that he was here. And then I thought, it's because this Orasoma is named Archangel Michael.
Oh,
that's my essence in this one. But then it was that same day that I saw that guy. And I thought,
well, where there's one, there can be the other. I mean, I'm not saying that it attracts, like having angels around doesn't attract the negativity. But if you're carrying that high vibration with you when you go out, then those things are going to notice you more.
Oh, well, I was thinking the opposite.
Oh.
I was thinking it was I either thought, I shouldn't say thought Archangel Michael was here, but I figured he was here to go.
Watch out for that, dude.
High vibration. What you're covered. Go around it. You know what I mean?
And you went around it.
And I did. Or sort of like where that situation was very scary, and it was scary to see anyone like that, whether it was drugs or walk-ins or possession, whatever it was. It was sort of, or I thought maybe he was here like, I know what's going to go on. I'm just going to make my...
Well, that was the least offensive thing that could have happened in that situation.
Yeah.
Like, all he did was stink eye you with his bloodshot eyes. It didn't escalate.
Right.
So maybe that was it. Maybe the purpose of the whole thing was just for you to notice, and again, to realize what you have working in your favor.
Right. Right.
Because it seems like you drew that. It seems like you naturally drew that conclusion, which means that's probably what the intention was.
Right, because it was that same day. It was like within 2 hours, and I'm not a medium. That's not really my thing. If I don't hear that, like when I said something in the apartment, I'll hear something. I'll hear footsteps or something. I'm not sensing. So it was a very odd to all of a sudden go, hey, look who's around, But so there you go, folks. You're protected even when you don't know it.
There you go.
Tommy
they put up with us. It's amazing.
I know. Okay, so here's my last thing. Because once I talked to Dave about this, I had a vision of an angel here that was moving almost robotically. And I said, it almost looked like a Christmas ornament, and it was moving through. And Dave said, sometimes I think, this is what Dave said. Dave said, sometimes coming through dimensions, it's not all perfectly clear. Maybe I was crazy, but it was in my head.
Good. I'm shrugging my shoulders. Sorry. I know people can't see me, so I have to illustrate. I was shrugging my shoulder. It could be that. It could be the way your perception was that day. There's a lot of things it could be. Yeah. For sure.
Because I never get that. So if I get anything like that, I remember.
Maybe they're a Styx fan.
That's right.
Sorry, I can't sing. I should stop.
That's all right. Wonderful. I'm so glad that you stopped by.
It was good to see you again.
It was good to see you.
Been a long time.
And everybody can send their questions next time we got to talk UFOs.
Sure. Hopefully I have more to share with you on that one.
You have something on everything. You are the most knowledgeable person I know.
Oh, that's terrifying. I'm sorry.
Tommy Durant, where can they all find you? Or do you not want them to find you?
Well, they've all been finding me through Karen lately. I don't really have a paranormal website, so just look me up on Facebook, Tommy Durant, Thomas Durant.
And if anybody really has a question, send it to me at paranormalkaren at Gmail or karenrontowski at Gmail, and I'll forward it to him.
Yeah, as what happens, like my wife always says, people have to send stuff to her because otherwise I won't read it.
That could be.
So I'm really bad at responding, so I apologize. Even my friends know that, so sorry, everybody. But I will try to help if I know you need help.
Yeah, send it to me. All right, everybody, leave me a 5-star review. I hope to see you in June. If you have, we had somebody send a great Mothman story. Send me your stories, your conspiracies, your ghost stories, so I can read them with my sister. Have any suggestions, anything, send it along. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next week.